All right, so we got a special episode with Brother Long talking about the stand up, right? And so in Scrum, we have a daily stand up. And the purpose of that stand up is to coordinate the team together, make sure we're all focused on what we're going to do for the next 24 hours to complete the sprint goal. And so when we're doing the stand up, it's important to go through a few things to make sure everyone's on the same page. First thing, you want to start out the stand up by making sure you reiterate whatever the sprint goal is. Because again, you're trying to figure out how to coordinate and plan to reach the sprint goal. But often in the day to day, people forget what the sprint goal is. So what you want to do is repeat that sprint goal in the beginning of the stand up each day. Make sure it's fresh on everyone's mind. And we're asking people, hey, what are we doing to make sure we tackle the sprint goal? Oftentimes, if you don't start with that sprint goal, people will focus on the activities they want to do, but the most important activities should be the ones that actually accomplish your goals. So you got to refocus everybody, redirect them to focus on that stuff first. The second thing, I want to make sure that we all talk about what are the highest items, highest priority items in the sprint backlog, and what are we doing to work on those highest priority items? And you want to go one at a time because if I can actually get as many people as is effective and efficient to finish off the top item, it makes more sense to finish that off before you work on the other items. Lots of times, what people do is they kind of go around the room, say, "What are you working on? What are you working on?" And it doesn't actually help people to focus as a team. They end up doing each of their own things, each of their own activities, and not swarming, working together to accomplish the top activities, the top items, the fastest. So those are just a few of the tips that we're going to work on. That the last tip I'm going to actually throw out before I open it up for you to comment on is you want to make sure that you're not only canvassing for impediments, what are the things that are stopping you, getting in your way from accomplishing this stuff, but what we also want to do is make sure that we discuss, are we on track for reaching the sprint goal? Often before the session, it's helpful to look at the burn down chart to see if you're on track or not, and then to take that information, throw it to the team so we can actually figure out if we're not on track, how do we change our behavior, coordinate together to get back on track so we can actually make the sprint goal. But again, it only works if you look at that information before the daily stand up. If the participants think about what they're going to do before the daily stand up, and then they come into the session with that information, so that way you're just coordinating and you're out. That way you can spend more time doing the work and not time in meetings, right? All right, so Brother Lon, I talked a lot about different tips for stand-ups. What do you think about this stuff?
Well, I think this is great because I just did my first one today, and all I was doing was canvassing for impediments. Um, and now that I know that we need to be talking about the sprint goal and the highest priorities in the sprint backlog, that gives me a reason to pull up the Jira to create a Jira for this because right now I just been doing it in my mind. But to set this up in Jira to create these different things, and that way the team will get to start getting exposed to the Jira tool and start learning that as well. And then it's also going to cause me to create more of a backlog so that we have different priority items and things to discuss. I would like for because you essentially you made a hypothesis that showed that you know exactly what my hypothesis and things are. So I would like this to, if it was you doing this, what would some of your backlog items be in this whole recruiter for WIOA thing that I'm trying to do?
Yeah, so again, one of the things that I would want to do is I would have some items to brainstorm and come up with a list of potential recruiters. right? Referrals from the people that you already recruited. I might actually do a brainstorm with the group to look at who are the most likely candidates of recruiters, right? And now we're going to circle back. Remember when we first started the podcast, we talked about coming up with personas. I might actually have an item to create a persona for what a potential recruiter looks like. Where do they hang out? Who do they interact with? What do they need in order to communicate with the public and introduce them to this idea? You know, what problems would they encounter? You know, what rejections or obstacles would they encounter when they talk to different people? I might do a persona to look at those different types of characteristics so that me and my team, we have a better understanding of who we're dealing with and how we can actually enable them to act on our behalf. So those are just a few of the work user stories that I might create to populate the backlog. What do you think?
I think this is great because that'll lead to continued growth. And I hadn't thought. I've only been thinking about who my recruiters can recruit to participate, but I hadn't thought about who my recruiters can recruit to recruit.
Yeah, it's like the more recruiters you got, the more you can spread this out. And again, one thing we've talked about um, when we've done the classes earlier is not just doing Scrum, but doing Scrum at scale, where instead of just having one team, now you have a team of teams, right? And you've heard about network marketing and things like Amway and Mary Kay, where they do network marketing, and you can create your own network, your team of teams to do more work. And the more you can actually organize and grow it, the faster you can actually make things happen, accomplish your goals, more money you're going to make from a business perspective. And so, again, you want to keep those type of things in mind so you can expand more rapidly. That's the key to the growth here. What do you think?
I think that this is great, and I was just thinking about how we can structure this so that it becomes profitable for the people who recruit the recruiters. You know,
Yeah.
and, and so this is exciting because um, I was involved in a little bit of network marketing, and I understand how we could create some incentive for my recruiters to recruit recruiters and so on and so forth. So this is something we can really build out and make amazing.
All right. Any other questions, comments you have about stand up, the daily scrum?
No, no, man, I think that you nailed it because the only thing I thought that to do was to go through what are you going to do 24 hours? What did you do yesterday? And what are any impediments? But now I know the daily scrum is also to bring some alignment into the organization, which we talked about. But when you're just asking what are you going to do, and then what did you do, there's a lot of room in there to add some more things in order to cause this alignment, but then also understanding to be talking about the things in the backlog with the highest priority and doing the brainstorming. So this just is going to cause my next stand up to be a lot more powerful, and I'm realizing I really need to go and start processing all of the information that we've already been through into a usable format for me, because I'm seeing how all this stuff is coming full circle, and I want to feel more prepared than I currently feel to make it happen.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point that I'm going to highlight here. Oftentimes, people they get introduced to those three questions and they just kind of stick with those. But one thing to keep in mind, each of these Scrum events is an opportunity for you to do inspect and adapt, right? And when I say inspect and adapt, I want to clarify everything in Scrum, you have a goal, right? So I'm trying to get here. I have my current state, I'm here, and I'm trying to figure out, how to actually bridge that gap, how to get closer, right? So I inspect where I am versus my goal. That's over here, right? That's the inspection part. And then I need to brainstorm to see what can we do a little bit, daily stand up, what can I do today that'll get me closer to close that gap between the two, right? Every time we have a Scrum event, we're doing that inspection and adaptation. And so you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. A lot of people get lost. They just ask the questions and get that information and go, but they're not really thinking about, hey, where are we in relation to our sprint goal? And are there things that we could do to accelerate getting there to make it better for everybody? So we got to make sure we don't fall into that deadly trap of not seeing the forest for the trees. um, and, when people just go through the three questions by themselves without actually thinking about what the sprint goal is, they do end up going that route. And that's why I'm so big on start the session with the sprint goal, right? So here's the goal we're trying to reach, right? My desired future state. And then before the meeting, you should have looked at the burn down, looked at what's actually be completed, and see where you are in relation to the current um, the current state. Right? See where you are, what your current state really is, so that in the stand up you can do that gap analysis. You can see how far away we are, and then we talk about it to see how we can get closer. Any final words before we wrap up?
Well, I would say that what we just went through was the daily stand-up nuggets, and it's very short and sweet. And so I would love us to do a nuggets for each of the 5 events to see, what would you be doing, in those each of those 5 as we go on.
You got it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. All right, folks. Hey, thanks for another great episode, and we'll touch base soon.